How many times is Khaled gonna make the same song over? Hey guys, Soulless Reviews here, and today we're gonna be talking about the new DJ Khaled project, I Changed a Lot. Which I actually find hard to believe, considering this project probably contains the most artists used in one project than all of his other albums combined. Having multiple guest verses from the likes of Future, Chris Brown, French Montana, and Rick Ross. See, I know, quite the star power you collected, Khaled, huh? I mean, probably the most frustrating thing about this album title is the fact that this problem is going to probably exemplify the fact that Khaled has changed nowhere. He hasn't changed at all. I think if you go back to his earlier days off of his We the Best record, his production sounded a little more cheesier and not all that likable, whereas today they're more club bangers, they're more infectious beats. But other than that, there really is no change in his what he does. He grabs the same artists and uses them several times throughout his album, sometimes having some artists that are, whoa, cool, like Nas on his Kiss the Ring, and even Jay-Z for this project, I changed a lot. I really can't think of any other big artists he uses. I know he used Jadakiss, but he has a Jadakiss verse on here, and he had one last time too, so it's really not that big of a thing for him to have Jadakiss. I mean, really, Khaled is known for having these pile of songs off of each and all of his albums that seem to be formulaic to the songs off his last album. They're all pretty much the same thing, just different artists and maybe a little bit different of production. There are some songs that I like by him, for instance, off of Suffering from Success, I did enjoy No New Friends and Hell's Kitchen. And off of Kiss the Ring, I did enjoy Hip Hop and, what was that? Kanye West, Rick Ross, Wish You Would. But I mean, before those two albums, I really didn't enjoy all that much of his work. Like I said, it kind of came off not even all that great. I mean, he did have All I Do Is Win, but I didn't even like that song. Really just a gimmick song for football games, any kind of sport game, or high school dances. So I am going to lower my expectations going into this. I'm not going to expect a great hip-hop album or not really know what to expect. I know what I'm going to hear here. I'm just kind of, at this point, it's kind of a matter of if I'm going to enjoy the music he's making or not, or if it's going to sound too repetitive and dumb and make me just going to want to shut it off and just play something else. Future annoys me, but I mean, not as much as French Montana does. I think French Montana might be one of the worst hip-hop artists in the game to this date, but I mean, you know, maybe Khaled he sprinkled some magic on this and they don't sound as bad, which I find very doubtful, but hey, I'm willing to give anything a shot. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I am going to listen to DJ Khaled's latest project, I Changed a Lot, and then afterwards, I am going to tell you guys just how I feel about it. Okay, so guys, what did we get with this new DJ Khaled project? Well, for me personally, it's just kind of okay. I mean, it's cool listening to it. There are some high points, there are some low points, but at the end of the day, it's a project where I'm just like, okay, I listened to it, I'll review it, but I'm never going to come back to this because really it has nothing all that interesting about it. But what really helps you in this scenario going into this is if you lower your expectations a little bit, like I said earlier in this video. If you go into this expecting like some elegant, some nicely well put together hip-hop, then you're going to be disappointed. Like honestly, there are a large portion of these songs come together very disjointed, and as a project as a whole, it really doesn't make all that sense. Each song has its own separate theme, and it just focuses on being a hit. So if you go into this wanting some serious hip-hop, then you just turn around and go listen to something else, because this is honestly not it. You have to lower your expectations for the main reason that DJ Khaled is a producer and he produces hits and beats, and if you go into that looking for something more, then you're not going to find much and may even be disappointed. And because of me lowering my expectations, I found myself being able to enjoy some of the material on here, even though I will get into the songs that just didn't come together all that great. Now, where I'll give Khaled credit is where he was able to hook me in. He was able to hook me in with, no pun intended, his hooks. If a song had some subpar lyrics or I wasn't enjoying what the rappers were rapping about, there definitely were some catchy hooks that got me singing and dancing to them, while as I wasn't as that entertained with some of the lyrics. I think one of my best examples is Gold Slugs. I really liked the hook of that, even though it was really simplistic. The first time I heard it, it was grilling and up and at the same time, and I was like, that's kind of stupid, but the way Chris Brown he rolled that out with the melody of the beat and everything, and I was like, okay, this is getting a little catchy. So the hook did a justice in making me like the song, and while I don't think Chris Brown and August Alsina ruined the song. I feel like Fetty Wap was the main culprit in making that song not that great. It was actually pretty funny, because when he started to sing, I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. Like, I can't even make out what Fetty Wap's saying, and he's ruining the mood of the song. And then DJ Khaled comes in with his signature ad-lib, like, DJ Khaled! And cuts off Fetty Wap's verse, and I was like, oh, that's kinda ironic, like, the worst verse in this thing gets cut off. And it was probably planned that way, but it just sounded like Khaled was sitting in the booth and realized that this verse was coming together very sloppily, and was like, oh god, I just spent too much money on this Fetty Wap verse, and then just cut him off. What's actually funny about this is the hooks that I actually found myself enjoying and being hooked on to are the ones where Chris Brown was singing. Like, how many times, although I feel like Wayne's verse was meh, Big Sean's was and Chris Brown's was like no, but the hook actually drew me in, and I was actually singing along to the hook. And Hold You Down, where Chris Brown is yet again on the hook, and I enjoyed it, I was singing along to it. But when Chris Brown did his thing, and then Future started doing his ear-piercing crooning, I just couldn't vibe all that much out to it. When I first heard that song and it was a single back when it was getting heavy radio play, I actually was not that big of a fan of it. I kind of shoved it aside. I was actually pretty annoyed by it. It was mostly because I didn't have like the sense of the hook. The hook really, when I listened to it in the context of this album, it really made it a little bit catchy. When I actually listened to it on better speakers and I had better sound, I was actually listening to the hook. But mainly the reason I used to hate it and don't really like it all that much now, and why it doesn't stick with me, is because the verses just aren't all that great, and I just don't care to hear about Future or Chris Brown rapping about women and their problems with women. But don't take that as every hook on this thing is catchy and good. It's not. I mean, especially the songs, like I mentioned before, French Montana. He comes on, luckily doesn't drop any verses as far as I remember, but for the songs that he's on, the several that he's attached to, he drops some of his voice on the hook of the song, and he just sounds so lethargic on every single hook he's on. He's like, yeah, Khaled, I'll sing this hook for you. I'll lay down my little hook for you. But I mean, afterwards we gotta hit up that strip club, man. You gotta give me my check for the song, and then we're gonna go hit some stripper booties, man. It's honestly like he's uninspired. He's just doing it to get the money to do whatever he wants to do afterwards. He's looking ahead in the future, not caring about the work he's putting in here, and he doesn't care to give a very energetic hook. It comes off very lazy, even when he's singing on the hook of I Lied, where actually had an interesting subject matter about lying to the authorities, even though it's the authorities, just to protect your homies and protect the people who you grew up with. I thought that was a pretty solid track, especially with Meek Mill and Jadakiss. I thought they all came together pretty well with their verses. It's just like the disappointment of it was French Montana laying down this really... I mean, the lyrics were good, but the problem was his delivery of those lyrics just, it wasn't there. There was no energy in his voice. It was very nasally, lazy. And if it wasn't a catchy hook, then it didn't come off as a good hook, then it just lied somewhere in the middle, and it just was very forgettable, and it just aided to the song being able to just not being something I wanted to return to. And there were definitely some spots that were very low, there were underwhelming points of this project. Like on I Ain't Worried, which essentially right off the bat is a topic that French Montana had already used on his last project, I Ain't Worried About Nothing. And it's just it's the same theme used over again, and I was a little excited because I know Rick Ross is a hit or miss occasionally, and Ace Hood actually can deliver, but for some odd reason on that track, Ace Hood seemed to downplay his lyrics, and Rick Ross seemed to be okay, so it seemed like Ace Hood and Rick Ross were on the same level lyrically, and that was disappointment, because I know Ace Hood can do so much better when he puts his mind to it, like he did on Trials and Tribulations. Or on You Mine with Trey Songz, Jeremiah, and Future, which essentially is just a little bit better of a version of I Wanna Be With You off his last project. It's a better version of that, but a lesser version of Hold You Down, so somewhere it falls in between those two tracks, and honestly, in the context of this project, was very forgettable. I mean, I get he maybe wanted to use Trey Songz to switch up the R&B vocals he has on this thing, even though he used Jeremiah and Future again on that track. But it came off to be a very forgettable, lazy track that he just wanted as filler to kind of express more of his R&B side, but really it didn't come off all that good. And I know on DJ Khaled projects you're bound to hear a Movado song where it's just him with DJ Khaled producing the track, but I just don't get it. Like, I don't see the need for it. This was on the regular version too, it wasn't the deluxe version. Which is why I feel like this track could have easily been a deluxe track, but for some reason he felt the need to put Movado on the regular version, and it was out of place. I mean, guys, I get it. This is actually, like, maybe I didn't understand the language, and maybe it would be better if I did, but honestly, when I'm listening to an album for the context of English, and that pops out of nowhere, then that's not something I'm going to enjoy. It was the type of song that you like switch on like Spanish radio and you're like, oh, I can respect this music because it's part of that culture, but I'm switching to that radio station because I don't understand the Spanish music, and it's just kind of goofy and enjoyable. But it did not fit on this project. Some pretty decent production, like on I Ride, there was a heartbeat, but there was also like a Michael Myers Halloween melody in the background, which I didn't mind. Some decent chimes on I Ain't Worried, and a nice backup chorus on the track I Lied. Alongside with some okay verses, some verses that I did like. I like Jeezy on I Ride, although it did sound like he was being smothered by the bass. Yo Gotti came through with some nice grit on I Swear I Never Tell Another Soul. And even Meek Mill came through with some hungry verses on these. And I want to give credit to Jay-Z, but I mean, not only was the bass on They Don't Love You No More very overpowering and too in your face, did not enjoy all that bass on that song, but Jay-Z, when you actually break down his lyrics, he wasn't getting all that lyrical, and it was actually a kind of subpar verse for what Jay-Z's capable of doing. Which seemed to be a problem too on I Ride, where, like I said, Jeezy was smothered by the bass and didn't leave him room to really vocalize his lyrics. So when you're listening to this album, there are some songs you can take away from it and be like, this was a decent song in the context of the album, but if you take it out and take it out of the context of this album and you put it in the surroundings of the hip-hop genre, it wouldn't last like a day or two. Because they really lack any creativity. They're just cool to hear once, maybe play once or twice after that just because they're kind of club bangers, but then after that you just kind of forget about them because they have no replay value. Just like the songs leading up to this, like I Wanna Be With You and Hold You Down, they were kind of here today and gone tomorrow, and that's what Khaled wants to do with his career, which is something I don't understand, because if I was in Khaled's position, I would want to create music that would be known throughout the rest of his career, not just here today and gone tomorrow. But for some reason, that seems to be the music that he wants to create, and thus we have this project, which was, I mean, cool to hear once for all your favorite artists on here, that maybe you do like some of these artists, but, I mean, after that, you're pretty much done with it. There were some cool beats, some decent production, and some, I mean, cool guest features, like I said, but at the end of the day, something I'm just not going to go back to, and really no songs I can take off of this. So, yeah, that's all I got for you guys. If you'd like to like or subscribe, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it, and till next time, Soulless Reviews.